This show is part of One Place, a daily network of focused briefings across the stories people follow most.
Welcome to the Daily Roundup. We have a massive slate of stories today, from a major cabinet shakeup to legal battles over artificial intelligence. Here is a quick look at what we are covering in this episode.
President Trump removes Kristi Noem from her post at Homeland Security, signaling a new direction for immigration enforcement.
We look at the string of controversies, from luxury jets to photo ops, that defined Noem's high-profile tenure.
Texas Congressman Tony Gonzalez withdraws from his re-election bid after admitting to an affair with a staffer who later died by suicide.
New details emerge regarding the House ethics investigation into Gonzalez and the political pressure that led to his exit.
AI developer Anthropic prepares to sue the Pentagon after being labeled a supply chain risk.
The White House celebrates a legislative victory as the House of Representatives backs continued military action in Iran.
We profile Senator Markwayne Mullin, the former MMA fighter, tapped to be the next Secretary of Homeland Security.
We dive into Mullin's combative history in the Senate, including his infamous near brawl with a union leader.
Police in Austin release harrowing body cam footage from a deadly bar shooting, being investigated for potential terrorism ties.
And finally, 24 states file a lawsuit against the Trump administration to block a new round of global tariffs.
Now, let's get into our top story. President Donald Trump has made a major move by removing Kristi Noem as the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. This ends a tenure that was marked by high-profile immigration raids and a very public-facing approach to enforcement. Trump announced on Truth Social that Noem will be replaced by Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin at the end of the month. Interestingly, Noem isn't leaving the administration entirely. She's being moved to a new role as a special envoy for a security initiative called the Shield of the Americas.
It seems like a classic case of the unwritten rule in the Trump orbit: no one can outshine the boss. Noem was often seen in bulletproof vests during raids, essentially becoming the face of the administration's crackdown. But that spotlight came with a cost. The relationship reportedly soured after a series of incidents, including a tragic shooting in Minneapolis where federal agents killed 2 U.S. citizens. When Trump sent border czar Tom Homan to lead the response there, it was a clear sign Noem was being sidelined. Now, with Mullin coming in, Trump is looking for a fresh start at DHS as we head into an election year.
Next up, we have to look at the specific headlines that really defined Noem's time at DHS, which many are calling a year of controversy. Beyond the policy shifts, there were several moments that drew bipartisan fire. One of the biggest was the revelation of a $220 million advertising blitz starring Noem herself. In one ad, she was seen on horseback, wearing a cowboy hat and riding through a herd of bison, urging undocumented immigrants to leave the country. While Noem claimed Trump knew about the spending, the president publicly contradicted her, telling Reuters he never knew anything about it.
And we can't forget Blanketgate or the luxury jets. Her de facto chief of staff, Corey Lewandowski, reportedly fired a Coast Guard pilot over a misplaced blanket during a flight. Then there was the purchase of 2 Gulfstream luxury jets, which Noem defended as command and control aircraft, even though one reportedly had a plush bedroom. Add in the optics of her wearing a $50,000 Rolex while visiting a prison in El Salvador, and you can see why critics on both sides were growing frustrated. She boosted deportations to 675,000 in her first year, but even that fell short of the White House's 1 million per year goal.
Now let's shift to a developing situation on Capitol Hill regarding Texas Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez. In a stunning announcement late Thursday, Gonzalez revealed he is withdrawing from his re-election race. This decision follows his admission of an affair with a former staff member, Regina Ann Santos Avilés. Tragically, Santos Avilés died by suicide in September 2005, setting herself on fire near her home in Uvalde. Gonzalez stated that while he made a mistake and had a lapse in judgment, he had nothing to do with her passing and was shocked by the tragedy. He has vowed to finish his current term, but will not seek another.
The pressure on Gonzalez has been immense. House Speaker Mike Johnson and the rest of the GOP leadership released a joint statement essentially telling him it was time to go. They encouraged him to address these serious allegations directly with his constituents. It is a significant blow to the Republican majority, which is already razor-thin. While leadership didn't call for his immediate resignation, likely to avoid further shrinking their numbers, the situation has clearly become untenable for him. Gonzalez, a father of 6 and a Navy veteran, said he has reconciled with his wife and asked for God's forgiveness. But the political fallout was simply too much to overcome.
Continuing with the Gonzalez story, the legal and ethical ramifications are just beginning. Hours before he admitted to the affair, the House Ethics Committee announced it was launching a formal investigation into whether he engaged in sexual misconduct with an employee. Under House rules, lawmakers are strictly prohibited from having sexual relationships with anyone under their supervision. Gonzalez had previously dismissed these allegations as blackmail and a coordinated attack to unseat him, but the mounting evidence and the tragic nature of the aide's death made that defense difficult to maintain. He now says he looks forward to the Ethics Committee investigation to bring the facts to light.
This withdrawal also clears the path for Brandon Herrera, a YouTube gun rights influencer who is set to face Gonzalez in a May runoff. Herrera had come incredibly close to beating him in the primary, and now it looks like he has a clear field. Meanwhile, Democrats like Hakeem Jeffries have gone even further than GOP leadership, suggesting that Gonzalez should be expelled from the House entirely. That would require a 2/3 vote, which is rare, but it shows how high the tensions are. It's a somber end to a congressional career that started with a lot of promise back in 2002, now overshadowed by this ethics probe and a human tragedy.
Now, let's turn to a major conflict in the tech world. The AI firm Anthropic has vowed to sue the Pentagon after being officially labeled a supply chain risk. This is the first time a US-based company has received this designation, which effectively means the government considers their technology insecure for federal use. Anthropic's CEO, Dario Amodei, has been very vocal, calling the action legally unsound. The friction seems to stem from Anthropic's refusal to give defense agencies unfettered access to their AI tools, like the Claude model, due to concerns about mass surveillance and the development of autonomous weapons.
The political layer here is impossible to ignore. President Trump himself posted on Truth Social that the government doesn't need or want Anthropic, and he directed agencies to stop using them. There are reports that the relationship soured partly because Amodei hasn't been among the tech leaders praising Trump or donating to his campaign. Interestingly, Microsoft has said they will continue to work with Anthropic on non-defense projects, but the Pentagon is standing firm. They argue that they can't allow a vendor to insert itself into the chain of command by restricting how the military uses a critical capability. It's a landmark case for how much control the government can exert over private AI developers.
Next up, we have an update from the White House regarding the ongoing conflict with Iran. The House of Representatives has narrowly rejected a war powers resolution that would have halted President Trump's military actions in the region. The vote was 219 to 212, and the White House was quick to praise the outcome, saying it reaffirms the commander-in-chief's authority to protect Americans from murderous ambitions. This follows a similar failure of the measure in the Senate. While the resolution was mostly symbolic, since Trump would have almost certainly vetoed it, the narrow margin shows just how divided Congress is over the lack of a formal approval for these strikes.
There were some interesting defections on both sides. 4 Democrats joined Republicans to defeat the resolution, while 2 Republicans, including Army veteran Warren Davidson, crossed the aisle to support it. Davidson argued that the America First message was supposed to be a rejection of the globalist war machine. On the other side, Speaker Mike Johnson argued that we aren't technically at war but are conducting a limited operation to strike drone and missile capabilities. Trump himself claimed that the U.S. is striking Iranian targets every single hour and that the Iranian regime is already calling to make a deal, though he added that the U.S. is in no rush to stop fighting.
Now let's take a closer look at the man who will be taking over the Department of Homeland Security, Senator Markwayne Mullin. He is a relatively new face in the Senate, having been sworn in just last year to fill the seat of James Inhofe. Mullin is a member of the Cherokee Nation and is actually the first tribal citizen in the Senate in nearly 2 decades. Before his political career, he was a contractor who ran his family's plumbing business, Mullin Plumbing, and even hosted a home improvement radio show. He's been a staunch defender of Trump's immigration policies and currently serves on the Appropriations Committee, which gives him a unique inside track on how DHS is funded.
Mullin's background is certainly unconventional for a cabinet secretary. He went to college on a wrestling scholarship and is even in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. Trump's endorsement of him was glowing, calling him a spectacular pick who will work tirelessly to secure the border and stop migrant crime. He's set to start the role on March 31st, but he still has to clear the Senate confirmation process. That might be interesting because he has a history of clashing with Senator Rand Paul, who chairs the committee that will oversee his hearing. If he's confirmed, the governor of Oklahoma will have to appoint a replacement for his Senate seat through 2207.
Speaking of Mullin, we should talk about his reputation for being a bit of a firebrand. He's not just a former wrestler, he's a former MMA fighter, and that combative energy often translates to his work in Washington. One of his most famous moments in the Senate involved him challenging Sean O'Brien, the president of the Teamsters Union, to a physical fight during a hearing. Mullen actually stood up and started taking off his wedding ring after O'Brien called him a tough guy on social media. He had to be told to sit down by other committee members. It's that kind of don't back down attitude that seems to have endeared him to President Trump.
He's also been very aggressive in his defense of federal law enforcement. After the controversial shooting of Alex Preddy in Minneapolis, Mullen was one of the first to call the ICE agents patriots and argued that most Americans follow instructions without thinking twice. He's been very critical of Democrats during the partial government shutdown, accusing them of political theater while DHS funding lapsed. He clearly views himself as a law and order conservative who isn't afraid of a confrontation. As he moves from the Senate to the head of a massive agency like DHS, many are wondering if he'll maintain that same fiery persona, or if he'll adopt a more traditional administrative tone.
Now let's shift to a very heavy story out of Texas. Police in Austin have released body cam footage and 911 calls from a deadly shooting outside a bar popular with University of Texas students. 3 people were killed, and 16 were injured in the attack. The footage is described as difficult to see, showing the chaos as officers responded within 57 seconds to find the gunman. The suspect, Ndiaga Diagne, was a naturalized U.S. citizen born in Senegal. What's making this an international story is that investigators found an Iranian flag and pictures of Iranian leaders in his home, and he was reportedly wearing a shirt that resembled the Iranian flag under his hoodie.
The FBI is now investigating whether there is a nexus to terrorism, especially since the shooting happened the same weekend the U.S. launched strikes on Iran. The suspect was also wearing a hoodie that said "Property of Allah," while he fired an AR-15 at bystanders. Austin Police Chief Lisa Davis praised the officers for their quick response, noting they immediately began applying tourniquets to the victims. While a specific motive hasn't been officially confirmed, the timing and the evidence found at the gunman's home have fueled significant fears of retaliatory violence on U.S. soil. It's a tragic situation for the families of the 3 young people who lost their lives.
Finally today, we're looking at a major legal challenge to the administration's trade policy. 24 states, led by New York, California, and Arizona, have sued the Trump administration to block a new 10% global tariff. This comes after the Supreme Court ruled that a previous set of duties was illegal. The White House responded by imposing these new tariffs under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974, which allows the president to impose temporary levies to address trade imbalances. However, the state attorneys general, all Democrats, argue that this is just another illegal power grab and that only Congress has the constitutional authority to impose such sweeping taxes on imports.
The economic stakes are huge. New York Attorney General Letitia James said, "The president is causing economic chaos and expecting American consumers to foot the bill." Meanwhile, the White House is defending the move as a legitimate use of authority to deal with the country's massive balance of payments deficits. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent even suggested the rate could be raised to 15% soon. This lawsuit mirrors a previous one that was successful in getting the Supreme Court to strike down earlier tariffs, and a federal judge just cleared the way for businesses to start receiving refunds for those. This new legal battle could take months to resolve, but it adds another layer of uncertainty for global trade.
That covers our briefing for today. It's a lot to process, from the reshuffling of the cabinet to the legal battles over AI and trade.
We'll be back tomorrow with another deep dive into the stories shaping the world. Make sure to follow the show so you never miss a daily update. Thanks for listening.